Hello guys, my name is Lucas and welcome. In last episode I showed you a quick overview of the game and what we're going to be working on, and today we're going to mainly be working on the UI elements. Also, before you start, I switched the platform to Android because if you do it at the beginning of your project, it's not going to take as long as when you have a lot of scripts, a lot of prefabs, and it has to change the settings of everything. When you switch your platform at the beginning, it's going to have the correct settings every time you import something, so then you don't have to spend a lot of time switching platforms. So if you're just going to target a platform like WebGL or something like that, it's a good practice to change or switch the platform at the very beginning. So the first thing we're going to do is right click in the hierarchy, and I'm going to create a canvas, and I'm going to leave the name like it is. If you're very experienced with UI canvas, you can skip to the minute on the screen. Otherwise, you can follow along with me and I will show you the things I like to do when I'm setting up my project. If you have a lot of experience with UI canvas, you can skip to the minute here on the screen. Otherwise, you can follow along with me and I will show you what I usually do when setting up my canvas. Go to the canvas scaler component of the canvas object, and I'm going to change the UI scale mode to scale with screen size. This is going to automatically change the resolution when we have different sizes on different phones. I'm going to use a reference resolution of Full HD, which is 1080 x 1920. Alright, so next I'm going to right click on my canvas and I'm going to add another UI element, this time a panel. And I'm going to call it Game Area. I'm going to change here in the Rect Transform component the anchor presets to the one here in the middle. Alright? And here we can manually set a size. Now, this size that we type here is going to be proportional to this here. Okay? So if we have a larger device, this is going to scale accordingly. So I'm going to use 500 times 500. That's too small. Let's use 1000 times 1000. Perfect. So we're going to be showing our pieces inside here. Alright, so this game area is going to hold a bunch of nodes. So it's basically a grid of nodes. And inside each node, there will be a piece with a different color. So let's make an image, UI image, and let's call it node. Our game area is 1000 times 1000, so our node could simply be 100 times 100, and we would have 10 times 10. I want to have 5 times 5, so we're going to make it 200. All right. So later on, we're going to create a bunch of nodes, and we're going to position them across the grid, across the game area. Right now, finally, inside our node, we're going to create another image and we're going to call it piece. All right, you can call it whatever you want, but this naming makes sense for me. And for this, we're going to use a image. We have a knob here, so it's round so that it can stand out a little bit. And we're going to make it maybe a little bit smaller than the node. So maybe 180 times 180. All right, and we're going to be just changing the color to make different nodes. Later on, we can apply different images, but for now, we're just going to change the colors. So we can have a green node, a red node, or piece, a green piece, a blue piece, or whatever we want. Right, let's move on. So we have this node. Right now, we're placing it in the middle, but we want the coordinate to be 0, 0 here on the top left. Okay, so we're going to change two things. We're going to change the anchor of our node, and it's going to be on the top left. All right, so now the anchor is here. Wait, didn't change. There you go. So the anchor is here, and the pivot, we want to change it here. So this should be 0 and 1. Okay, so the pivot is 0, 1, and the anchors are 0, 1 in the minimum and 0, 1 in the maximum. All right, here. So now if you see, if we place this at 0, 0, our first node is there. And then if we create another node and we set it to 200 and 0, we have the second node, and so on. So we can change each of these values. So I'm going to create a prefab. We're going to make this node a prefab. So here in assets, create folder prefabs. And I'm just going to drag the node inside here. We are also going to need a piece prefab. So I'm going to drag that right away. It's asking me to open the prefab, so I'm going to open it. And now I can drag the piece inside here. All right, so now we have a node and we have a piece. In game area, I'm going to add a new component, which I'm going to call game controller. And I'm going to create a folder in my assets folder called scripts, where I'm going to keep all my scripts. So I'm going to drag this game controller here, and this game controller is going to create our nodes, and it's also going to keep track of our score, check for matches and things like that. So let's go and edit it. We are going to first of all need a reference to our node. So public game object node prefab. All right, so we have a node prefab that we're going to use, and we also want to have a reference because we're going to be using it a lot. So we're going to need a reference to our rect transform. All right, rect transform. I'm just going to call it rect transform, and because it's private, I use an underscore. We're going to set this rect transform at the very beginning of our script. So in start, we're going to do rect transform equals this dot get component rect transform. And I know this is not actually necessary, but this makes the code more readable. You will realize this is not necessary to type it anyways. So, all right, we have our rect transform, we have our node prefab, and now we want to do a loop that will create all of our nodes, right? Right now, our game looks like this. We want to have our nodes fill this square. So if I have 5 here and 5 here, we're going to do a loop that runs 25 times. So let's do void create nodes. So we're going to create our nodes here, create nodes. All right, first a for loop. All right, and for those of you who didn't know, if you type for and then just press tab twice, you're going to get a scaffolding of the for loop. So it's pretty cool. Same for the for each, right? So if you do for each and then tab twice, you get this template of a for each function. All right, so int I equals 0 and my length is going to be 25. I want to make 25 nodes. We're going to do game object node equals instantiate node prefab. All right, and then we want to make that node a child of this rect transform. So we're just going to do, or actually this rect transform is the same as this game object. So we're going to type node.transform.setParent. Remember to use the setParent function and not parent equals to. So setParent this.transform. All right, so let's see what happens up till now. Let's go back to Unity. We have an unsigned reference, of course, Lucas. You always do this. We need to set the node prefab reference here in our inspector. So we go to the prefabs folder we made and we drag it here. All right, now we press play and we have a bunch of nodes, all of them inside here, but you can see they're off down here because their position is all messed up. So let's fix that. For each node, we're going to get the node rect transform and we're going to set the anchored position. So node.getComponent rect transform dot anchored position equals, and we're going to set it to some vector, right? So we're going to make the vector here first. This anchored position is a vector 2. unlike the regular transform.position. So vector2 position equals, so we're going to do a formula with I. So we're going to type new vector2 I times 200. Let's do that first. Oh, right, and then 0. And here we're just going to type position. So we create the position here. Each time is going to increase the X value by 200. And let's see what's going on here. So all our nodes should be here, but that's not what we want, right? We want them to go down. So from here, you could do two things. You could use the modulo operator to basically do 200, 400, 600, and then again and again and again. It's going to loop, right? And you can use it to manipulate the Y value too. Or you could have another for loop inside, and then each for loop just has 5 iterations. So we're going to go with that approach, which I think is going to be the most common. So for, again, this time our variable needs to be called J. And the length is also going to be 5. So we're going to do all this inside the inner loop, right? And now we can use I and J to make our coordinates. So again, is I times 200 because we want to go 200 on each row. And then here is J times 200. All right. So let's see what this does. All right. So it worked, but it went upwards because, right, Y positions go up, not like in web development. So let's go back to our code and let's do this negative 200. And now it should really work. All right, so now we filled our grid with nodes. They all have like a blue piece. Don't worry about that. We're going to change the colors from the piece component that we're going to have here, or from the node component. Could be either. I prefer to do it from the piece component. So let's do that right now. So let's select our piece prefab, and we're going to add a new component. I'm going to call it piece. I'm going to go to assets and drag it to my scripts folder. Now let's open it. All right, I'm going to get rid of this update function and I'm going to create a new function called change suit. All right, so this is basically going to change the color. All right, for this change suit, we are going to actually define a few suits that our piece can have. So we're going to use an enum. All right, so enum suits, and we define our suits. So I'm going to have a none, just in case. We're going to have a red one, a blue one, a green one. So we have our suits, and then we're going to have a suits suit, which is going to be none at the beginning. All right, wait, sorry, suits.none. Okay, so this is going to be our suit, and this could be public, but if this is public, then this also has to be public. Okay, so we have our suits and we have our suit, the current one. All right, so now if we actually want to change the suit, we should have a parameter in this function, which is going to be of type suits suit. So we're just going to do a switch. If you type switch and then you press the tab button twice, it's going to make a template for you. So if I'm just going to do suit here, so we're going to pass the suit here, and you see it generates all the cases for us, and this saves us a lot of time actually. All right, so if it's none, we just break. If it's red, we're just going to do something very simple, just change the color of the piece. We're going to tell our engine that we're using Unity engine.ui, right? Because we want to access the image component. Get an instance of the image here first. Image equals this.getComponent image. Now we can use this image dot color equals color.red, right? Or you could define your own colors. Now we just copy this a bunch of times. They didn't have pink, but they have magenta, which I think is pretty similar, so, or at least people would confuse those. So let's do magenta. So we have the function to change colors, but now let's do a random change suit, all right? So let's do void change suit random. And if you know how to use the random class from C#, we can use that, or you can use the random class from Unity. In this case, I'm going to use Unity's random class. So I'm going to do random.range. And then remember, the first number is inclusive and the last number is exclusive, all right? So we're going to do 1 because 0 is none. So 1 is starting at red, and we want to get a random number between 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But since 5 is exclusive, we need to do 6. Okay, remember that, it's pretty important. So this is just going to be int rand equals that random number. All right, and now we need to use this random integer to get a random value from our suits. So how we're going to do this? Well, we type var, let's do something like suits equals enum dot get values. Wait, enum. Do I need to? All right, yeah. Before that, we need to tell our program we're using system. All right. So our random now is ambiguous. We need to say Unity engine here because all right, when we tell our program we're using system, the random class can be coming from Unity engine or can be coming from the system class, all right? So we need to tell our program, hey, I want to use the random class from the Unity engine one and not from the system one. enum.getValues type of suits, all right? So we store all the values here, and then we're going to do suit equals suits dot, this can be a little bit confusing, get value, and then we do the random number that we created here. This is suits. So we're going to use this suit that we got randomly. So basically this is get a random number, get a random suit, and then we apply that suit. So change suit, right? We could have called this random suit, right? Like that. Maybe that's a little bit more clear. Basically here we get the values, and then we use that here to get a value from a number and set it in the random suit, and then we apply that random suit with this function that we already created. And on start, we're just going to change to a random suit. So change suit random. I'm gonna run that, and if we run our game now, every time our pieces start, they run their start function, they should change to a random color. So let's see if this works. And my Unity just crashed, so I have to open it again. All right, so my Unity just crashed, so I have to do all over again. I set it up all over again, and now we can try what we just did. Remember, the colors should be random, and they are random, but something really weird just happened. So the scale, yes, the scale. For some reason, the scale is off. Let's fix that. So let's go back to game controller, and here where we create our nodes, we have to do node.transform.local scale equals vector 3.1. All right, this is uniform scale. So let's try this one more time. And there you go. We have all different colors of our nodes. The problem is that we start with a match here, for example. If we run this again, you can see that it's actually random, but we should be able to get matches like this one. So we want to prevent having matches at the start, right? We're going to be needing to check if there is a match, and if there is, we need to change the color again until there is no more matches near us. But for that, we're going to have to wait for the next video. We're going to learn how to prevent matches on start. We're going to learn how to drag pieces from one node to another. And we're going to be learning how to check for a match, and if there is a match, we're going to explode those pieces, make the pieces on top fall, create new pieces, all the cool stuff. But that's all the time I got for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel. You know the drill. You have watched YouTube for a lot of years. Also, I'm going to leave a link in the description with my Google Play store, so you can see some of the games I have uploaded. I'm planning to upload the Match 3 game when I finish it, and I'm going to be uploading even more games. I have 2 games in that account already, so feel free to try them. Feel free to criticize them or give me any feedback. I'm sure you're going to give me awesome feedback, guys. So thank you so much, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.